Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Agoracom, in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives after they put out important news. With us today, happy to have him back, Marshall Gunter, CEO of Datametrex, trades on the TSX Venture on the stock symbol DM, on the US OTCQB, DTMXF. That's the first time we're saying that symbol in these interviews, and for our friends in Europe under D4G. For those of you new to the story, Datametrex AI has the rare benefit that most small cap companies only dream of: two successful independent divisions that are each capable of being company makers. The first division is their AI-driven social media monitoring and discovery product. Clients there include Canadian federal government, Health Canada, United States Air Force, even South Korean conglomerate Lotte, multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. The other division is their COVID-19 test kit distribution business. And unlike a lot of companies that use that as a buzzword to try and capitalize on some short-term, promotion, Datametrex, because of their security clearances, both Canada and South Korea, was able to capitalize when the Canadian government came knocking, asking for assistance for the import and distribution of COVID-19 test kits. And Datametrex ran with it, signing several big testing agreements with mining companies, television film industry, all over the place. That translated into their full year numbers. Revenue, $12.4 million, up 264%. Cash balance, $1.97 million, up 1,540%. Marshall, let's talk about it. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks, George. Glad to be back.
You should be glad to be back. You're busting records on revenue. You're busting records on cash balance. Before we get into the numbers, safe to say that this is an understatement, that this is a transformative year for the company. How big do you see it as being for Datametrex this year?
Well, this is our turnaround year. I mean, that's definitive. So, for those of you unfamiliar with me, I took over not quite last year, but just before. And then when we had to put our financials out, we had, I don't know, $115,000 in the bank, something like that, at the end of the year, and we're struggling to survive. So we took over, we refocused, and we got moving. We got rid of all the fat. We did some trimming down. We put our, we bet on the AI, and it paid off. So right now, as of now, coming from $100,000 in the bank, we've got almost $2 million in the bank at the end of Q4. There's a lot more actually in there now. We'll be able to talk about that when the Q1 numbers come out. We've turned the business around completely. As you stated, we have two successful divisions, and revenue is growing at an incredible rate, and we're putting cash in the bank. We feel much better. We're in a way better position to operate than we ever were. We're here for the long haul now. So over the past year, that the moves we've made and executed on have made that possible.
Hey, and what is one more question for the numbers? What does a year like this do for the long-term growth of the company? Because money begets money, right? Success begets success. Right. And when you're kind of stuck in and just fighting and grinding, you're grinding growth. But now you guys have got revenue, great top line growth, great cash balances. What does this do as setting the table for just doing what you want to do and kick in your growth plans?
Well, this allows us to really move forward at a much greater pace than we were. So, a year ago, like I was talking about, your focus is on, let's just get some money in, can we keep the doors open? That's all you have time to think about. But now, now that we have the staff in place, we have, a great board in place now, we have all the support systems in place we need, we have the cash balances we need. We can really focus on the future of the company. Look at things, what are we going to do over the next 2 years? What are we going to do over the next 5 years? How are we going to plan that? How are we going to put ourselves in a position to really bring value to our shareholders over the next few years without having to struggle on those day-to-day things like, how am I going to pay the bills, or how am I going to keep the lights open? How am I going to pay the staff next week? It's a way, way different mentality. And over the course of the past year, we've done that. We've put the people in place to run these businesses. We've acquired the talent we need to get moving, and the numbers are starting to show that. We have the money in the bank. We've got all the, the senior people in place. We totally redid the board. And now, we are going to start using all of this success to funnel back into our core business, our AI business, just as like we've been talking about all along. And you're going to start seeing a lot of this moving forward about the direction we're going with the artificial intelligence, combined with our knowledge in the health field that we've obtained over the past year with the COVID business.
Well, let's talk about the two lines of business, because you just ended with the COVID business. So the COVID-19 test kits business, February 2020, that wasn't even on the radar, wasn't even a business. And now you brought in $8.3 million ballpark in revenue for fiscal year 2020, basically from March till December. That's what you brought in. Is this an indication first of how well you guys are able to execute? Because even though it was kind of handed to you, you still have to execute. Most companies would have got overwhelmed, not know what to do with the opportunity. What does it say about the kind of brains and operation you guys have there to actually execute that so well?
Well, one of the things it does says is we know what we don't know. Now, let me explain that real quick, because nobody here, when this started, was in pharmaceutical imports or the medical field. So we had to go out and figure out who we need to contact and who we need to bring on board in order to bring this expertise in. And that's what we did, okay? And then as we went, we learned the field, we learned how to maneuver, we learned how to, do that business while bringing that talent on board. And now we have, a large group of, say, medical personnel with like Dr. Sharif is our chief medical officer, and everybody who works at Concierge Medical who've been doing this type of work for years that have allowed us to accelerate that business. And speaking of acceleration, let me speak to that just a minute in the COVID business. We started out, like you said, we got the Canadian embassy said, can you help obtain these materials from South Korea? We said, sure. And we started on that path, beginning of the summer last year, just prior to that, about May. And we started growing, and we had a few sales here and there. But as we grew into it, we realized there were a lot of other verticals that were there. And what really started picking up was television and film. And that started picking up right around October of this year. And we signed our first big contracts there at the end of October. And since then, that growth is going like this. So we saw that, we saw it starting at the end of Q4, but that growth is continued into Q1 like that.
Well, just that Screen Pro, just that signing of Screen Pro, I know it's Q1, not in fiscal year 2020, but I mean, just that alone was a monster deal, one shot.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Screen Pro allows us a lot more flexibility, and being partnered with them allows us to get around a lot of the restrictions that were placed on Datametrex by the TSX in order not to trigger change of business. But it does allow us to go out and reach out to more groups. As of right now, if you look at the television and film business, you go list like, I don't know, the top 5 who are in the world of media, we're working with them. I mean, it's up there.
Wow. Let me ask you a question there. You can't blame investors though, or anybody, if they start thinking, hey, vaccinations are starting to come out, they're starting to roll. What's your response there? Is the business still accelerating, or is it going to slow down now because people feel as if, they've, companies in film feels like we don't need to test anymore, we got vaccinations coming?
No, it's accelerating. Nobody is backing off on that. And when the Q1 numbers come out, you're going to see that acceleration. It has not stopped, nor does it show any signs of stopping. That being said, there is an end to the COVID business. We all know that, all right? It's coming at some point in time, which is why you're seeing us, and you've seen a few press releases over the past, few months, like some LOIs that have come out with us looking into other artificial intelligence companies and stuff, that we are doing exactly what I said we were going to do all along, and use the COVID business to bolster our core. And our core is our artificial intelligence business. Now, one thing that we have learned along the way is we've learned a lot around the health industry, and we've learned a lot around what can be done if we combine our expertise from both the artificial intelligence that we have been working with the US government, Canadian government, Samsung, Latte, and put that knowledge and put that expertise into the health field. So we are dramatically exploring that opportunity right now, and you're going to see some things coming out shortly around how we're doing that and how we're taking this money and bolstering our core and making sure that Datametrex is on a solid foundation to continue forward for, the foreseeable future.
I want to hop onto the AI for a second, but I just want to end off on the COVID-19 because maybe we might disagree with each other here, and that's good because we want to make these real probative. Uh, we know the COVID-19 test business at some point going to come to an end, but personally, I don't see that happening in 2021. I still think it's going to go strong because we're not going to get 100% vaccinations. We still, big business isn't going to take a chance. Big film, big mining companies, I don't think going to take a chance on having the breakouts of people who aren't vaccinated, so on and so forth. Am I reading that wrong? Do you think it's going to come to an end sooner, or do you think it still stays strong in 2020 and then maybe starts to taper off in 2022?
Well, right now we still see it staying strong. So nobody's at this point backing off. They're actually accelerating their testing.
I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason is, and because what the companies and the medical field has learned over the past year is when you have an outbreak, it just goes like wildfire. So no, it's not worth it if you're, say, a film company who's doing $150 million production.
Right.
To slack off on your testing, because every day that you get shut down, it costs you, millions of dollars a day just to be closed. You're not doing any work. And testing doesn't cost millions of dollars a day. It costs a fraction of that amount. So why not test? That being said, there's also a lot of uncertainty in the field. We're not sure about how the vaccines are going to react. We're not sure about, any variants. We're not sure, how all of this is going to play out. Normal vaccinations go through like a 6 to 10 year approval period. So they do know how all this stuff plays out before they approve it. With COVID, we're jumping in, head first, right off into the deep end.
I just want to make sure we clarified that because I didn't want people at home thinking, okay, the COVID-19 test kit business is winding down pretty soon. I still see a long runway. You still see it. Great. Let's keep that going. On the AI side, going back to that now, you did $4.1 million in revenue. That's about an 18% increase, which normally isn't the growth rate for a tech company. But I'm going to presume there, Marshall, that you guys put a lot of focus onto the COVID side for good reason. You brought in $8.3 million there. So it's not a case of the AI side has any growth issues. Is it more just a case of you guys are so focused on this brand new revenue stream that you just had to capitalize there?
Well, it's a little bit of both. So we had a lot to putting together the COVID business, which has proved very fruitful. So there was a lot of emphasis there. On the AI side of things, during the year, you've seen we brought in several big contracts with large, corporations. We got the renewals with Latte. We got the new multi-million-dollar contract with Samsung, which is great. So now we have these companies in the fold, so to speak, and we're continuing to expand business with them. Where we did see some slowdown was on the public front. So there was a lot of trepidation about spending some money into R&D or A&I from governments worldwide. So we've seen that. We have been given the indications. Yeah. So we've been given the indications now that those programs are going to be turned back on, and we're continually in talks with both the U.S. and the Canadian government, and we have been meeting with them over the past week, and this will continue over the next couple weeks as they are starting to see an end to the, say, trepidation as far as budgets are concerned with COVID. So the AI has not stopped. In fact, we're moving it into a couple, like I said, some more verticals and things we're looking at. It's still going. It's still increasing. And I'm proud of the group for actually accelerating that growth despite the pandemic.
Yep.
And despite, our core business at that point focused completely on government business, which with the pandemic kind of ground to a halt for about a year right now. But despite that, they're able to go out and grab these large contracts with the private industry, Samsung and the like, and that's still going. So as this lifts, or as these veils lift, this is only going to just take off.
I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the net loss in the announcement, which is somewhere around $4.9 million. And that's a 78% increase from my calculation over the year before. How do you account for that, given the fact the year went so well on biz dev for both parts of the business, both parts of the company?
So let's talk about accounting versus bank accounts. So with the net loss, this is a lot of cashless items that are in the loss. So we had a lot of rebuilding to do during the year. So a lot of the money goes back into rebuilding the business. So for instance, like I mentioned earlier, needed to reestablish a lot of the board, a lot of the oversight of the company. We had to make sure that we had the right people in. So you have a lot of cashless loss items. Like
What's an example of a cashless loss item on new people you bring?
Option issuance. Say we need new board members. We have to issue, it's to keep the talent we need on our governance. We have to give them equity in the company to keep them interested and to keep them excited about what they're doing.
And that's for people at home, that's a loss. And well, that's an expense, sorry, in terms of accounting, but it's not a cash loss at the end of the day.
That's right. That's right.
So
We don't.
People at home should know that distinction, because it happens with tech companies all the time, right? The fastest growing tech companies a lot of times report losses like this because they're paying the best talent in the world in options and warrants and things like that.
Oh, absolutely. And this is something that we really wanted to continue to invest in and keep investing in, because that talent and those people are our number one asset, right? And as long as we keep the best people, we're going to be in really good shape. And then, there's also some other things. There's some write-downs that come through that have been going on throughout the years, and people familiar with the story are familiar with these already. But at the end of the day, we're in a way better cash position right now than we were, reporting our financials a year ago. So, a year ago, $100,000, now just shy of 2 million.
Yeah, and that's the difference between bank accounts and accounting. So, Marsh, let me ask you: do you have a ballpark idea of, without these non-cash write-downs, non-cash expenses, what the bottom line would have looked like, and how would it look like compared to last year?
Yeah, so without all of this, last year was we'll talk about EBITDA. With the EBITDA, it would have been a minus 2.1 million previous year. And this year it would have been a minus 860,000.
Ah, okay. So a significant improvement. Because on the books right now, just if you look at net income or net loss, the net loss has gone up, 78%. But once you remove all the non-cash expenses and write-downs, it sounds like you're going from 2.1 to 800,000. So that's a significant improvement there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
about a 65% reduction, just doing quick math.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, we're continuing on that trend. So, I mentioned it earlier, but I'm really proud of the work that everybody did with this. And, going from 3.4 million in revenue to 12.4 million in revenue, making the improvements we did, establishing the business that we did over the past year, bringing the people in, building it up, making sure it works. It's all in place, and it's all going to continue. And I think, as soon as we're able to report our Q1 numbers, everybody's going to have really, really big smiles on their faces, as you're going to see the fruits of all this labor and how things are progressing forward.
And I want to end on that. The last time we spoke was mid-March, and you said that Q1 was shaping up to be the best quarter in the company's history. Did it end up that way? Because we are end of April. I guess we got to wait till mid-May, end of May for the Q1 to come out. But fair to say that it ended up as the best quarter ever for the company.
I am super excited about what we're going to be able to talk about in Q1. And you're right, it's coming out in a couple of weeks, hopefully mid-May. I don't have much control over that, as again, it's an independent auditor, so we can say, hurry up, but they go as they go.
Typically 60 days from the end of the Q. So if March 31st is the end of the Q, you can 45 to 60, just depends, right? But the more successful the business is, the later results will come out. So 45 is where it comes out for GeorgeCom, the widget company that only has a couple of employees and a few sales and not a whole lot going on. Well, an accountant can put that together in no time and hit that 45-day mark. But if it's Datametrex, maybe we're going to be looking closer to 60 days, end of May, hopefully, because it sounds like you're hitting on all cylinders. Marshall, thanks so much for joining us to talk about the results. I know your shareholders deeply appreciate it, that you take the time out to contextualize and really provide that in between the lines kind of info for them. Last words to you before we end off.
Well, George, I just want to say I'm really proud of everything we've done here over the past year, and the growth that we've experienced over the past year is only going to continue. And you're going to see that, and that's a promise. And when it comes in Q1, we'll be right back here talking about this, and hopefully less than a month. And you guys are going to see the fruits of what we've built over the past year, the foundation we've laid, and how things are just moving forward just like that.
You heard it here, folks. Make sure you tune in. Keep Datametrex on your watch list. And if you're a shareholder, keep cheering for it. For everybody else, you've been watching or you've been listening by podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple, your favorite podcast platform, to Marshall Gunter. He's CEO of Datametrex AI Limited, trades on the venture under DM. For our friends in the US, DTMXF, and for our friends in Europe on D4G on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. For those of you new, start your due diligence. You need help, we got it for you. Just get to the Datametrex hub on Agoracom. Go to the profile page because there's a lot going on here. And we know there's a lot going on here. There's AI, there's COVID, there's technology, right? We give you, I'm not even gonna say 30,000 foot, we give you a great 10,000 foot overview of the company so you really understand that. But then hop over to the company's website. You can see the URL. Obviously, you can do it from Agoracom, but you can see the URL right above Marshall's head there as well. Get over there, do your due diligence, do a deep dive. We know how we feel about AI, artificial intelligence. We know how we feel about social media going forward, platforms for this decade. We can't tell you how to feel. That part's up to you. Do your due diligence. Just don't say we didn't tell you so 12 months from now. Have a great day. See you next time.